presentation is not to supplant or replace the standard modality or process by which history teachers present the history of Mindanao in their subjects. The main focus here is to highlight critical events in history, particularly in Mindanao, that may have contributed somehow, directly or indirectly, to the current intercultural, social, and even political dynamics that we are seeing right now, either through media or through traditional media or through social media. So, gusto ko lang i-stress yun. Okay, so let's start with the question of who are the tribe people. Kasi pinag-uusapan madalas pagka binabanggit yung term na Mindanao at yung kaguluhan sa Mindanao, pumapasok din yung term na tribe people. So, ang term na tribe people basically was coined, if I'm not mistaken, by Professor Rudy Rudil in one of his works, historical works. Professor Rudy Rudil is a member of the faculty of Mindanao State University Iligan Institute of Technology. And the word tribe people represents three groups, major groups here in Mindanao. They are what we call the settlers, the Moro, and the Lumad. So to deepen that, okay, so yung Lumad, the first group is composed, depende sa i-research ninyo, pero ang Lumad is composed of 18 main indigenous or IP groups who are particularly found in Mindanao. So, dyan yung Ata, Bacopo, Blaan, Bukidnon, Dipabaon, Panwaon, Mangbuangan, Mandaya, Mamanwa, Higaunon, Manobo, Kalagan, Mansaka, Tiboli, Teduray, Subanon, Tagakaulo, and Ubo. A lot of them have strong blood ties or anthropological ties to each other, but over time they have become a separate and distinct tribes. So, and these 18 groups also have sub-tribes. Lalo na yung Manobo, maraming sub-tribes yung Manobo. Okay, now the Moro naman. After the Lumad, we have the Moro. There are 13 tribes who comprise the Moro. So kung ang Lumad, for the most part, until the contemporary times, they have preserved their paganistic practices. They worship yung mga anitos. The Moro naman, who are equally indigenous to Mindanao, were those that were Islamized during the 13th to 16th century. Nagtitingan yung mga Muslim missionaries dito sa Pilipinas. And these are the Maranao, the Maguindanaon, the Iranon, the Mulbog, who are found in Palawan, the Sama, who are found in Tawi-Tawi, the Yakan, who are found in Basilan, the Tausu, who originate from Sulu, the Bajau, who are also from Tawi-Tawi, but you find them everywhere here in Mindanao, even as far as Luzon also, even in Malaysia. Jamamapun, they have an island in between Palawan and the Zamboanga Peninsula. The Sangil or Sangir, they have an island also off Sarangani Bay. The Palawanon, also in southern Palawan. The Kalibugan in Zamboanga Peninsula, and the Kagan. So we've seen in the previous slide na may Kalagan among the 18 ethno-linguistic tribes na Lumad, meron ding Kagan dito. Now, they actually belong to one and the same group. But the Kagan, those who call themselves Kagan, are the ones from the tribe who have, quote-unquote, converted to Islam. While the Kalagan, until recently, they have maintained their practice of worshiping anitos, yung paganistic practices. Now, yung last member ng tribe people is yung mga settler. More or less mga 7 to 8 tribes who actually come from Luzon and Visayas. who were settled to Mindanao by past governments, starting from the Spanish period up to the post-colonial period, and they have acquired proprietary rights. So basically, compared to the Moro and the Lumad, who have ancestral domain rights, the settlers, their rights here in Mindanao, this is acknowledged and recognized, meron silang proprietary rights. And this will also be explained later on as we go along. Okay, so ito yung mga tribo na madalas mo makikita rito na may karamihan. No? Ilonggo, Bicolano, Waray, Pangasinense, Ilocano, Tagalog, and Bisaya. So Bisaya, composed of the Boholano and the Cebuano and so on and so forth. No? Pag sinabi mo namang Ilonggo, it's basically those that come from Panay Island and Negros Occidental. Okay. Now, we go now to how people started to populate Mindanao. So we'd have to connect this to the greater archipelago na rin, no? So archipelago ng Pilipinas. No, merong actually mga 5 na mga theories na nagsasite kung paano nagkaroon ng tao sa archipelago natin. But I'm going to cite only 3 here. No? The first one is the Ice Age theory. So alam natin na long ago, nung panahon well, everyone I think is familiar with the what is this? The animation movie, no? Ice Age. So malamig yung klima ng mundo noon. So mababa yung water level, yung ocean level. So dahil mababa, yung mga otherwise submerged na mga lupain ay nakikita pa at they serve as land bridges of sorts connecting islands to each other. No, so through this theory, merong mga ancestors tayo coming from the mainland of Asia who walked through the land, over the land bridges and reached the Philippine archipelago. The second theory is the one proposed by Dr. Fritjof Foss, yung tinatawag na bottom of the sea theory, na ang sinasabi ay well, iba daw yung tectonic plate ng Pilipinas sa mainland Asia. At, tayo ay nabuo, yung mga isla natin, kapuluan natin nabuo dahil sa nagkaroon ng mga earthquakes at may umangat na mga land masses galing sa ilalim ng ocean floor at makyat at nagbuo ng mga isla natin. No? And then over time, nagsipuntahan yung mga taga-mainland at nagkaroon ng tao dito sa archipelago natin. Yung pangatlo naman na more popular or most popular among the 5 na nabanggit ko kanina na theories is yung tinatawag na three waves theory or yung related sa Austronesian na migration, no? And then ito ay proposed by theorized by Otley Beyer. Nauna daw dito yung mga Ita o Negrito, mga around 21,000 BC. At sila yung mga ninuno, yung base kung bakit dumating yung Tendatus, na-meet nila si Marikudo at Maniwantiwan sa Panay Island, no? Nagkaroon yung alam natin yung legend ng Golden Salakot. Tapos around 3000 BC, dumating naman yung mga Indo na mapuputi, matatangos ang ilong, matatangkad. And then lastly, dumating yung Austronesian, mga less than 1,000 years BC, no? Mga around 300 years BC. Basically, sila yung basis ng Tendatus, nila Dato Puti, no? And dito sila yung mga may relation sa mga Pacific Islanders, kaya na mga Samoan, yung mga Maori, no? Yung mga Hawaiano. No? So that's why marami mga similarities tayo nakikita, no? Pre-colonial period, we have that practice. Our tribes here in the archipelago have that practice of tattooing, no? Hanggang ngayon kilala natin si Wangod. And nakita natin yung mga Pacific Islanders is matindi yung kanilang pagtatattoo sa kanilang katawan. The more tattoo you have, the higher your status in the community is. And that's one indicator of how we are related to them. Now, ano ba ang characteristics ng period na to? No? Bago dumating yung Islam, bago dumating yung mga Espanyol, yung mga Amerikano, well, walang formal religion at that time. That's number one. Yung mga tao ay wandering people. Kumbaga, walang mayaman, walang mahirap, pero lahat sagana. No? Siguro dahil po konti lang din ang tao sa archipelago natin, so sagana sila. So, there's no land ownership. You plant here, you harvest the same land, and then you go to another, and the land kung saan ka nagtanim, someone else will use that for another type of crop. No? So, walang exploitation din. Mostly agriculture and fish. Sarap ng buhay nila, no? And yung economic dynamic nila is based on the barter system. So, yung sa may isla, may mangga, or what have you, tapos nakikipag-trade sila dito sa Mindanao, let's say Cebu, no? They trade with Mindanao, the tribes here in Mindanao to get fruits or what other crops that are abundant here that cannot be grown in the island areas. Tapos yung structure of governance natin ng time na yon is Dato system, Raja system. So nakakonect din ito dun sa Srivijaya and Majapahit Empire na nababanggit naman sa history din, the greater history. No? Bakit may Raja tayo, which is an Indian term. No? And then we rule the barangay from the word balangay, which is a boat. So we have also traditional. One thing that we can stress in the among the characteristics of this period is that when we resolve conflicts, kung may kaguluhan, may pag-aaway, may sigalot, use the traditional form of resolving conflicts. No? Ano ba ang paraan nito? Usually, generally, at hanggang ngayon, pinapractice. No? Binubuo ito ng mga nakakatanda. That's the reason why we have a term for it, no? Na nakakatanda sila. The elders, the council of elders, they are formed and they are well respected. No? Our norms, no, make us respect our elders, no? To the point that what they say we follow, we believe in, and that is taken advantage of during those times. So when there is a clan feud, let's say for example, dinadaan doon sa mga nakakatanda at sila ang nag-aayos ng clan feud na yun. Kagaya ng sinabi ko rin kanina, one of the characteristics was also walang talagang titulado. No? Lahat may-ari, may pag-aari sa lupa. If I plant here and later on I do not, it's okay. Somebody else plants on the land where I previously planted, it's okay. And then everybody was indigenous. No? Well, in fact, hanggang ngayon, lahat naman tayo indigenous. If you claim to have been born here in the Philippines, this archipelago, and your bloodline, your ancestry comes from here, then you are indigenous, native ka, which is I don't know why, pero naging derogatory na rin yung term na native dito sa atin. When in fact, all of us are native here if your ancestors originate from this archipelago. So, one people lang tayo noon. Now, punta naman tayo sa Islamic period. This is between 1280 to 1521. There were 6 people who were cited by various historians who contributed to the arrival and spread of Islam here in the Philippines, particularly in Mindanao. So, pinakauna dyan si Tuan Masyaika. He arrived in Sulu. He was a trader. No, and yung kwento-kwento ng mga kaibigan ko na Tausug is dahil malakas ang currents kasi ng ng mga sea waters, no, around Sulu. Kailangan ni Tuan Masyaika mag-antay ng pagbabago ng buwan, no? Kasi kung pipilitin niya yung current ng sea waters, maaanod ang kanyang maliit na barko sa kung saan man, no, na tako. So in order for him to be able to return to where he wanted to go after arriving in Sulu, he had to wait for maybe a fortnight for the return of the moon, kung ano man yung itsura ng buwan nung dumating siya, kailangan antayin niya yon na bumalik yon. Either new moon or half moon or whatever. I'm not a sailor, so I'm just guessing there is that particular phase of the moon where it allows sailors to travel safely. No, at inantay niya doon. While he was waiting for that to arrive, of course, kailangan niyang mag-pray regularly. And as you know, Muslims pray 5 times a day. So na-observe yun ng mga natives ng Sulu, yung kakaibang pamamaraan niya kung paano siya magdasal. No? So curiosity led them to ask certain questions, and that was how he inadvertently spread Islam in Sulu. No? And then 100 years later, another person, Sheikh Karimul Maktoum, who was an Arab missionary, he came to Sulu, and then he went around the island provinces, no, particularly in Sulu and Tawi-Tawi. He was responsible for building the first mosque in Sulu. No, I think it was built in 1381, 1 year after he arrived. No, Simunul, Tawi-Tawi. No, and I was fortunate enough to visit that mosque 2016, if I'm not mistaken. It's still there. Yung mga poste niya nandun pa, nakatayo pa. Although yung buong katawan niya updated na para maka-survive sa katagalan. Now, 10 years after that, dumating naman itong Sumatran prince na si Raha Baginda Ali. No? No relation to the good chancellor, but he was a prince. No? And he arrived in Sulu with a cadre of cohort, no, escorts and warriors, and somehow nagsimula dumating siya, hindi maganda yung arrival niya. Resist siya ng mga local people, local tribe, dahil siguro dahil maanga siya, but eventually he got the respect and love of these people, and he became somehow a de facto leader. Hindi pa naman natawag na sultan siya at that time, was a raja. Pero naging de facto leader siya ng Sulu. Almost half a century later, dumating naman si Shariful Hashim, or more popularly known also as Abu Bakr. And he married, and this guy is from Johor, and he was Arab scholar, and then he married the daughter of Raja Baginda, and then he became the first sultan of Sulu. He established the sultanate, Shariful Hashim. And then in northern Mindanao, a lot of Maranao's historians also said that there was this Arab scholar, his name was Sharif Aulia, who arrived in Taguluan too, and he helped in spreading Islam that area. Most probably is the one who influenced the spread of Islam among the Maranaos. And then Sharif Kamungsuan arrived, another Arab scholar. He entered into Rio Grande, and then he spread Islam in the Maguindanao, largely Maguindanao territories. So these are the 6 people who are attributed to have introduced and spread Islam in Mindanao. So ang tanong, bakit may nung time nung dumating ang mga Espanyol, meron ng mga Muslim sa Manila, sa Mindoro, no, sila Raha Sulaiman, no, si Raha Matanda. Well, si Raha Sulaiman kasi apo ng Sultan ng Brunei. Most probably si Raha Matanda was also a nephew of the Sultan of Brunei. That is the linkage there, no. And somehow nag-contribute na rin yung spread ng Islam prior to the arrival of the Spaniards, no. It spread going up northwards, no? Kaya umabot talaga yung Islam, abot hanggang Luzon nung dumating na si Miguel Lopez de Legazpi sa Tagalog region. Okay. So during the spread of Islam, 2 sultanates were founded and 1 group of principalities. No? So that's the Sultanate of Sulu, nabanggit ko kanina, na founded by Shariful Hashim. And then my Sultanate of Maguindanao, which happened 1619 when Sultan Dipatuan Kudarat merged 2 principalities. So actually, there were 3 principalities, but the 2 major ones was the principality here in the Rajabuayan area and the principality of Maguindanao. He combined the two plus the one in Sibugay, Zamboanga Sibugay. If those who are traveling around Mindanao who pass by the area around Pagadian City, you will notice there are a lot of Mindanao there, and they are not immigrants. They are actually original there because meron talagang principality ng Maguindanao tribe dyan, no, which directly connects to the old Sultanate of Sulu, which has control of the western half of the peninsula. Okay, and then the last is the Patapangapom, the four principalities of Lanao, no, which was established after 1640. No, that's where I come from. That's where the good chancellor comes from. That's where Pakat na Jifa comes from. We were not able to form our own sultanate because most probably we were disturbed by because we were the last to have the intention of forming into one singular sultanate, pero naudlot dahil sa ginugulo na tayo ng mga Espanyol and then later ng mga Amerikano. So hanggang 4 principalities lang kami. Hindi na kami nabuo into one singular sultanate. Okay, so in comparison to the period ng wala pa yung Islam, ano yung kaibahan? So from the Dato system, nagkaroon ng sultanate system and mas advanced yung sultanate system. Ang daming practices ng sultanate system from the Middle East na tinuro ng mga nag-introduce ng Islam, ang naituro na rin dito sa atin, no, like mas systematic yung law and order, may taxation, no, may sovereignty, sabihin nakikipag-sign na tayo ng treaty. And this one, no, itong treaty na ito, I'd like to stress this that we will be touching on the characteristics of a treaty, not academically, pero no, how this has been used over time by states and kingdoms, no, and somehow naaabuso ito, no, kasi in the most simplest of terms, when you say you are having a treaty, you're a country or a kingdom, and you say na you are having a treaty with someone else or something else, that means that other one is most probably another kingdom or another state also. You don't have a treaty with your own province. Let's say, for example, the Republic of the Philippines, it's preposterous to think that the Republic of the Philippines would have a treaty with, say, for example, the province of Cebu. Kabahagi na siya ng Cebu, ng Pilipinas yung Cebu. So there is no need to have a treaty, no? So let's put that, no, i-park natin yan, babalikan natin yan. And of course, one last na characteristic ng sultanate system na mas advanced kaysa sa Dato system is yung trade agreements. Okay, now, what are the characteristics of the period, in particular sa experience ng mga taga Mindanao? Well, dito nagsimula yung two people. Na ito punsad ng pagdating. May mga legends kasi kami na pagdating ng Muslim scholars dito at nag-spread na, lalo na si Sheriff Kabungsuan, spread na ng Islam, may narrative about the brothers Mamalu and Tabunaway, na Tabunaway was receptive to converting to Islam while Mamalu preferred to stay being worshiping the Anitos, no? And as a result, nag-usap na lang sila, nag-agree na lang sila na Mamalu would take the highlands and then Tabunaway would take the lowlands. And then all of the followers of Tabunaway became the Maguindanao, and then all the followers of Mamalu became the Tuduray. Depende sa kung sino yung tatanungin mo na tribe, kasi there is also that same narrative, something almost similar between the Manobo. The Manobo are the descendants of Mamalu. So it becomes hazy, and I think MSU students and MSU alum have a subject on this, no? History 5 pa yan, Foreign Luman History. Kung titingnan mo, bago dumating yung subject na yan, merong isang book na nagde-data bank, and then kung titingnan mo yung mga narratives about Mamalu, around Mamalu and Tabunaway, depende sa tribe na pagtatanungan mo, nag-iiba-iba siya. Sometimes in other narratives, si Tabunaway ay babae. Sometimes si Tabunaway ang nakakatanda. But definitely, magkapatid sila, si Mamalo at Tabunaway, and then one of them, particularly si Tabunaway ang nag-Muslim, si Mamalo na natiling IB. Okay, and then nanatili yung kanilang relasyon ng ano no formally no dahil sa meron silang mga regular na rituals na ginagawa no na it is a sign na magtutulungan sila, magpoprotektahan sila, malinaw yung boundaries ng kanilang mga komunidad no and yung sandugo na tinatawag sa Luzon at Visayas ginagamit. The blood ritual also is practiced here no, in Mindanao. And there are, depending on the language of the tribe, no, it is either called Tampuda, Hubalagan, Bagkus, Sapa. Sapa is, no, you swear. No, Pakang, Diande, etc. There are a lot of terms that refer to the blood rituals that are used to reinforce regularly the bond of mutual defense and support between the Islamized tribes and the indigenous tribes of Mindanao. And then at that time, nung two people pa, wala pa yung tinatawag na struggle for right to self-determination. The term officially came from the United Nations, pero yung actual practice of it, no, wanting to govern yourself in a particular way, a way that is consistent and compatible to your way of life. No, yun yung right to self-determination kasi. No, wala pa yun. Kasi more or less the tribes of that time, whether Islamized or not, malakas yung similarities ng isa't isa. Wala naman silang pinag-aawayan. Probably at that time, sagana pa. Wala pang mahirap, walang mayaman. No, ang dami pang pwedeng kainin libre. Di kagaya ngayon na lahat halos kailangan may bayad. So, and also we would like to stress that the spread of Islam was through missionaries and leaders, not by conquest. No? It was not forced through the sword. No? And then last point is Islam arrived in the archipelago 300 years before the Spanish conquistadors came. I need to say, mas nakakatanda kung relihiyon, kung sinong paunahan, sinong dumating na relihiyon dito sa Pilipinas, nauna yung Islam, nahuli yung Christianity, at yung Islam, yung pagpasok niya rito ay hindi dinaan sa pilit, no? Ganon, dinaan siya sa yung una pang dalawa na nabanggit ko hindi sinasadya, nahulog lang, napunta lang dito, napadpad lang dito, kailangan antayin yung pagbago ng tawag niya, ng tide, no? Tapos para pero nakita, so nag-share sila kasi pinagtatanungan sila kung ano bang style ng pagsasamba nila, no? Okay, now we go to the Spanish colonial period. So we attribute the arrival and spread of Christianity and Spanish influence to three people, no? Sabi nga ni Yoyoy Villame, no, in March 16, 1521, Ferdinand Magellan arrived, and then he was followed by Roy Lopez de Villalobos, pero hindi umabot, hindi talaga nakatungtong si Roy Lopez de Villalobos sa mainland Mindanao kasi dito siya dumating sa Sarangani Bay sana sa may, kung nagkakamali, sa may Balut Island ata siya umabot, hindi na siya natamaan ata yung mga barko nila ng peste. So nagkasakitan sila, so kailangan nilang bumalik. Tapos ang pinaka-successful sa lahat, kasi of course we know what happened to Ferdinand Magellan, no, or Fernando de Magallanes, no. He met Lapu-Lapu and that was the end of it. Now, in the most successful person who arrived was, of course, Miguel Lopez de Legazpi. He arrived in, he was able to establish control in Cebu, Iloilo, and then Manila. And then from there, no, he used these three areas to establish strongholds to spread further into the different parts of the archipelago. So what are the characteristics of the period? Well, we have to be reminded na the reason why Spain came, una alam naman natin spices ang hanap nila. No, actually ang pagkaalam ko yung Moluccas ang hinahanap nila ng lugar, which is south of Mindanao. So napadpad lang sila dito sa Pilipinas thinking na ito na yung Moluccas. No, they were looking for spices. Pero at the same time, also meron naman silang meron naman silang I don't know what it is called, no, a letter of marque siguro, no, that they are authorized by the Spanish Empire to spread the empire and the name of God on behalf of the empire to all places where they may reach. No, so it was not only God, good, but also glory. No, and I think our history books have said this. I could vaguely recall na nabanggit ito ng aking teacher nung ako ay nasa elementary pa. No? So, now in relation to Mindanao, yung praile, yung mga praile na palagi nating naririnig at napag-uusapan sa history classes natin, ang unang mga praile na dumating sa Mindanao is mga Recollect friars. And then, nung dumating sila rito, closely followed by the Spanish courts na. So basically, when Legazpi came, Spain prevented the continued expansion of Islam in Visayas and Luzon. Dahil siyempre, may sarili din silang baon. At ayun nila, may hugot din sila. Nabanggit ito kanina ni Chancellor Ali. No, may hugot din yung mga Espanyol sa mga Muslim. Bago sila napadpad dito sa Pilipinas, bago lang din nila nakuha yung kanilang kasarinlan because they had been controlled by Muslim Caliphate for 700 years or 800 years. And the breakup was not that good. So, dala-dala nila yung hugot na yung dito sa Pilipinas. Nakita nila yung mga nandito na nag-pray in the same way as their quote-unquote former enemies were praying in the Iberian Peninsula and in North Africa. So, syempre, yung nilipat nila yung galit nila sa nakita nila rito. And yun, no? Meron na rin silang bitbit, no? Mas effective din sila. They have more advanced weaponry and naka-trigger yun ng maraming subsequent events na not so good. No? And then, but here is the characteristics that I would like to stress. No, Spain, most probably, if we are going to be literal, sabihin na lang natin na colonize, quote and quote, ngayong kabuuan ng Luzon at Visayas. Pero colonizing the kabuuan of Mindanao, I don't think so. Kasi ang naabot lang nila based on historical records is yung pag-establish ng mga kuta, yung mga forts dito sa Mindanao. Hindi talaga sila makapasok-pasok sa hinterland. Kasi if they try, mauubusan sila ng mauubos talaga sila kung hindi man ng mga Moro tribes, ng mga Luma tribes, no? So, for them to slowly establish their presence, no, ang style nila is tayo muna siyempre dumaan muna sila sa proseso na nauna yung mga Recollect friars, may na-convert yung mga Recollect friars dito, establish naman sila ng forts, lalong-lalo na pagka umasenso, halimbawa yung sa Tandag, no, yung may fort doon sa Tandag noon, no, dumami yung mga na-convert ng mga friars doon, mga succeeding mga travels ng mga galleon papuntang Tandag, may mga kasama na yung mga Bisaya Indio na pinaresettle na nila sa coastal area at saka sa tabi ng ilog. No? Siguro para na rin maging tawag dyan, harang, no? Defense mechanism nila. Meron silang frontline yan. Tapos, of course, at the same time, dahil na rin meron nga silang hugot galing from the Iberian Peninsula, from the Spanish empires past, nag-create sila ng propaganda demonizing the Moro as non-believers of God. No? So, bad people, ganun, no? Which is until now carried. No? marami kang naririnig naman na sa social media pa lang marami ka na nakikita na wrong notions and stereotyping, generalization nung mga taong nandito sa Mindanao by those na taga Visayas and Luzon. No? It's been centuries na pero nandiyan pa rin siya, malakas pa rin siya. Now the propaganda against the Lumad or what were called as infieles, no, by the Spaniards, but it's not as strong kasi sabi nga nila mas madaling ma-convert yung mga may paganistic beliefs pa kaysa sa yung Muslim na tapos gagawin mong Christian or Katoliko. So mas hindi nila dinidemonize. Dinidemonize lang nila yung mga lumalaban sa kanila, no? So and historically speaking, mas documented, no? Although meron talagang lumaban din ng mga Lumad, the entire 300 years of colonization of Spain, the archipelago in Mindanao, mas documented yung sa Moro, pakikipakan ng Moro sa mga Espanyol. There is another one na related din dun sa mga Bisaya Indios na pinaresettle dito sa Mindanao. Meron kasi silang batas yung mga Espanyol, tinatawag na pulistas o yung forced labor system. So originally yung pulistas, nung pinasa nila yon, the purpose was for them to clean the sides of the galleon. May galleon trade, so yung punta sa Mexico and then back to Spain, no, kailangan linisin yan kasi yung mga barnacles na dumidikit sa ilalim ng dagat. So ang inuutusan nila may forced labor, mga fixed period of time, no, mga converts from Luzon and Visayas. Later on, mas nag-diversify yung type of forced labor na pinapagawa doon. Now, when you say police, that's across the board. According to historical documents, may threat ka, kumbaga you will incur severe penalties, no, which will adversely affect your family kung hindi ka mag-submit sa pulista na program ng Spanish government. So everybody, all able-bodied men, no, were employed in the pulistas. Now, among them later on nasama na rin yung pagiging shock troops pagpapunta sila sa Mindanao. Kasi konti lang yung mga conquistadores eh. Ang dami-dami mga kalaban na Moro at Lumad, no? Mga kaitsura ni Amaya at ni Pagani. So ginamit nila yung mga na-convert nila sa Visayas at Luzon. Now, you connect that to the time when these people from the different islands of the Philippines, of the archipelago, were trading with each other. So most probably, they know of each other, no? By lineage siguro, anak ka ni ganito, pamangkin ka ni ganon, di ba? Prior to the coming of the Spaniards. Most probably, may intermarriage pa nga na nangyayari. Kasi nung time nga ng Islamic period, umaabot na yung sultanate sa Brunei, sa China, no? Lalo-lalo na yung Sultanate of Sulu, umaabot sa China. Meron pa nga silang line doon, may angkan sila doon na naiwan ng royal blood. So, how much more yung nandito lang sa malapit na mga isla. So, imaginein mo kung ikaw yung shock troop, matagal mo na akong nakasosyo, nagba-barter trade tayo, most probably one of your family members is already married to one of my family members, and then we meet in battle. You on the side of the conquistadores because you are supposed to comply with the pulistas policy, and me, of course, I have to defend my land and your master's intention to colonize, subjugate me, no? Magkaibigan tayo, paano yan? Now, we are forced, so lumaban tayo. Definitely, pag ako nakapatay sa iyo or ikaw nakapatay sa akin, that will result to sama ng loob, woundedness, no? When you go home, don't tell me you will smile. Kung halimbawa ang kapatid mo ang napatay ko, nakasama rin sa pulistas, don't tell me you will smile. Of course, magmumura ka. You go home, you tell everybody, kulang-kulang na lang mga demonyo na yung nakapatay sa kapatid mo. And if ako naman yung napatayan ng kapatid or ng relative by your side, abot hanggang langit din yung pagmumura ko at mumurahin ko sino man yung nakapatay. Then I will demonize you as well. So imagine that kind of dynamic for 300 years. No? Because incessantly, the Spaniards have been using the converts of Luzon and Visayas as shock troops. Walang humpay. No? Even up to the time na nabuo na yung KK, yung Katipunan. No? Imagine the woundedness o lumalalim ng lumalalim. So anyway, that will be discussed also further later. Now, dito sa Mindanao, yung nabanggit ko, there were forts that were established. Makikita mo talaga na parang intramuros ang itsura nila. No? Fort Pilar, yung forts were established in Julo, Zamboanga, Polyok, Cotabato, Tamuntaka, Cotabato, also Tabiran, Reina Regente, Piquet. These are all along massive river pathways. No? Now, attacks against the Islamized natives started in 1565. Now, sabi nga nila, kaya lang naman kami lumalaban kasi namirata din yung mga Moro at tumad sa amin. Well, the first raid of the Moro was recorded on 1615. So that's about 1605. So that's about mga 40 years na una yung attack against Islamized natives. Well, mainly by the Spaniards, no? So, yung palitan ng laban, it resulted to a 300-year-long war, which was later called the Spanish-Moro War or the Moro-Spanish War, depending on who you are asking. No? So one main fact that I would like to stress here, which is also related to why we are talking today and why things are happening in Mindanao, is that the Moro and the Lumad have been fighting the Spaniards centuries before the Katipuneros did. No? And unfortunately, pag titingnan mo yung flag ng Pilipinas, this is just a side segue, no? To observe mo yun. Fortunately, doon sa flag ng Pilipinas, yung 8 rays symbolizes 8 provinces. But it never represented the Lumad or the Moro in their centuries fight against the Spaniards. No? So, diba, siyempre ikaw, matagal ka nang lumalaban, kalaban mo pa sila, tapos naghimagsik sila, pero nung nabuo yung republika nila, yung republika ngayon, hindi man lang makita saan yung lumaban ng mga ilang centuries. No? So, that's one of the resentments that you would expect from people from Mindanao. Okay, now, next is, parallel to the Muslims, kasi we would not want to highlight only the Moro side, but the Lumad also resisted, in equal fashion. Yun lang, number one, may isang historian, if I'm not mistaken, si Una Paredes ata nagbanggit na, if in the history of in traditional Philippine history, printed history, the history of the Moro is a footnote. No? Kasi trivia, no? Kung titingnan mo yung libro ni Saide, ilang pahina lang ba ang nagbanggit ng Moro doon sa ganung kakapal na libro ni Saide? Or pupunta ka kay Agoncillo, ilang pahina lang din ba mababasa mo na nagbabanggit sa mga Moro o lang Lumad? No? So sabi nga niya, if in the traditional Philippine history, the Moro narrative is a footnote, the Lumad narrative is a footnote to the footnote, which is very sad to know. No? And thankfully, people like Professor Ridil had tried to bring it back to the limelight. Now, definitely, there were resistance done by the Lumad during the time of Spanish period. Yun lang, yung approach kasi, may term nga yung mga Lumad, yung pangayaw, this is a Manobo term, but I think also other Lumad tribes use this. No? Pangayaw, meaning you go on a raid or you go head hunting. No? Several Spanish sources, particularly yung mga recollect transcripts, no, na nakolekta ni Una Paredes, it reveals na the Lumad engaged in pangayaw. No? So it's a small scale warfare. Kasi nga may punitive exercises din yung mga Spaniards sa kanila. So ang ginagawa nila, rumerespak sila sa mga Spaniards through the pangayaw. And unfortunately, yun lang, yung mga recollect transcripts lang ang nagbabanggit nito. Wala ka makita anywhere else na, unless otherwise itong mga nag-exert ng effort like si Schreurs or si Professor Rodil, no? Si Sir Ompong. Now, so ito nabanggit na rin kanina. Now, ito ang ano, isa pa na going back to the mention of treaties, no. So, sasabihin mo you engage into a treaty, if you're a kingdom, you engage into a treaty with another only if that other is also an independent kingdom. So, here mayroon ng treaty actually yung Spanish Governor General sa dalawang sultanate, Sultanate of Sulu and Sultanate of Maguindanao, no? Ang dami pa nga eh, pabago-bago pa. Pero at the end of the day, hindi sila tinrato, unlike yung pagtrato ng China at ng Brunei sa mga sultanatong ito, they were treated as protectorates or subject kingdoms of Spain. So parang how ironic is the usage of the treaty ba? No? So that's also the hugot why meron ang kasabihan nga bago pa nagrepublika, may estado na dito. So, ba't nyo kami sinasama? No? Ba't nyo kami sinasama diyan? Hindi nga kami nakikita sa ano mga pinagsasabi nyo. Nakikipag-treaty sila pero ginagawang protectorate, tapos the concept of a treaty is independent nation to independent nation yan. So, parang naaabuso na yung paggagamit ng treaty, no, over time. Now, nabanggit ko na rin ito earlier, and I just like to stress na as casualty rates rose, no, dumadami yung namamatay, both sides, no, the feeling of woundedness spread, no, lalong lumalalim, kaya nakikita mo here in Mindanao kasi pagka may mga, and I've heard this personally kasi one-fourth of my blood is Bisaya. So I have grandmothers who are diehard Catholics, and I hear them sing, inuuyayin nila, yung nilalalabay nila yung mga pinsan ko, pinapatulog, pagka tumahimik ka na, pag hindi ka tatahimik, ibibigay kita sa mga moro, or ang derogatory term doon is yung muklo, no. So and that's already contemporary times, no. Siguro I was elementary, so mga early 80s, and this woundedness started 300 years ago. So ibig sabihin most probably hanggang ngayon malakas pa rin yan. Tinatago lang natin ng maigi, most probably meron na kasing information more accessible, but yung hindi kasi madaling mawala pag nahugot na hugot level na siya, hindi na siya nawawala, no. So yun ang challenge, no. Tapos during the period of the Spanish colonization, dito na siguro pwede nating masabi na nabuo na paunti-unti yung sinasabi na nag-i-struggle kami kasi gusto namin ng right to self-determination. Kasi ayaw namin sa pamamaraan ninyo itaguyod kami, at pamamaraan ninyo pinipilit nyo sa amin kung paano mamuhay, no. So dito na nagsimula, no, during the Spanish period. So again, no, to highlight also, I've mentioned earlier that limited yung historical documentation on the role of Lumad tribes in fighting against the Spaniards, pero there were records in the Recollect transcripts, no. And one of them was that Dato Salangsang of the Cagayan area was converted in 1620s, and then over a decade after that, pero actually less than a decade after nung pag-convert ni Dato Salangsang, yung mga kamag-anakan niya doon sa Caraga area. And when I say Caraga, it covers a broader area than what it is now, no, in Mindanao. Nagkaroon ng Caraga Revolt, no, na Caragans, and this is a combination of several in the IP tribes or Lumad tribes, no, from Agusan, Surigao, and Davao, went against Captain Pedro Bautista. Ito, hindi lumalabas to sa mga mainstream history books. Tapos merong mga 'di ba? So merong mga lumad na nako-convert, merong mga lumad na naghihimagsik, no? And then yung mga nag-convert, this is recorded na nag-petition sila on 3 occasions na nag-request ng Spanish presence doon sa settlement. Kasi yung mga settlement nila, it was already a mix of converted Lumad and Bisaya Indios, or even those that came from Manila as well. So naghalo na sila doon. And this formed part of what is now what are now the cities of Butuan, Davao City, Cagayan de Oro, yung mga combination of converted IP or Lumad tribe people, and then yung settlers from north. So bago pa ito, nangyari na ito bago pa yung batas ng National Land Settlement Act ng 20th century. Okay, now so dito na tayo sa American colonial period, 1898 to 1946. So alam naman natin kung anong nangyari doon. One critical point that I would like to highlight here is that when Emilio Aguinaldo declared independence, June 12, 1898, kinausap niya yung Kongreso, January 1899, na mag-empower, actually ang in-empower nila dito yung governor ata ng Iloilo para maging ambassador ng government ni Aguinaldo, pumunta sa mga dato at sultan ng Mindanao for purposes of establishing a national solidarity upon the basis of a real federation with absolute respect for their beliefs and traditions. So, noong panahon pa lang ni Aguinaldo, meron ng plan for a federal form of government. Yung nga lang, hindi nangyari. Well, by precedence kasi, mag-segue lang ako, if you establish a federal form of government, you start from a federal form of government. There has never been anywhere in the world, if I'm not mistaken, na nag-start ka sa unitary form of government and then ginawa mong federal. No, yung Amerika, yung Germany, no, nagsimula federal talaga tuloy-tuloy. Wala pang atang unitary naging federal. So medyo mahirap yung plano actually ni Tatay Digong. No, just to segue a bit. But its idea, it was already planned by President Aguinaldo at that time. Now, what happened? So nagpadala ng ambassador, para ligawan yung mga Moro leaders at Lumad leaders. Alam mo, according to one write-up, sinabi ng mga Moro leaders doon is pakisabi na lang kay brother President Aguinaldo na he is 300 years too late. Kumbaga. Ang meaning dito is, for 300 years na lumalaban kami sa mga Espanyol, nasaan ka ba? Na kaninong tabi ka ba? So yun ang hugot kumbaga ng mga Moro leaders at that time. Saan ba kayo nung nilalabanan namin sila? Di ba kami ang kalaban nyo rin? Kinakalaban nyo kami. So mga ganon, no? Yung woundedness, nag-surface. So I just like to highlight that. Now, what added insult to injury was the Treaty of Paris. So binenta ng Espanya sa Amerika yung yung kabuuan ng Pilipinas kasama ang Mindanao, kahit na ang nakaya lang nila ay magtayo ng mga kuta o mga forts sa mga coastal areas at hindi talaga nila na subjugate yung kabuuan, yung all of the people, all of the tribes of Mindanao, hindi nila na subjugate. They were only able to colonize the coastal areas and then placed forts there. So it was already insulting overall that the 20 million was not in American dollars but in Mexican dollars. But what was more insulting to those who were in Mindanao who were never subjugated was that they were included, their lands were included in the sale. And the Americans thought that the inclusion was de facto, kumbaga, totohanan talaga kasama sila. Imaginin mo kung halimbawa binenta ang Pilipinas sa halimbawa lang UK, tapos dinamay natin ng Indonesia. Yung tawag diyan, yung nandiyan sa south of Mindanao na mga isla na kulay itsurang cross, kalimutan ko yung pangalan na yan. It's part of Indonesia, no? But let's say for example, Tatay Digong sold the Philippine archipelago to UK, included that part of Indonesia. What would the people of that part of Indonesia feel? So it's more or less what also the people of Mindanao felt when the Spaniards sold the Philippines, including Mindanao, to the US. No? Okay. Now, i-highlight ko din dito na nag-sign din ng US ng treaty sa mga sultanato. So, nandiyan na naman yung treaty na yan, no? Na concept na abuse, no? May treaty sila non-interference pero as protectorate. So tinuloy lang nila yung innovation na ginawa ng Spain sa mga sultanates na ito. Now, during that time, ayun, mga key things na kailangan natin i-take into consideration, the Torrens tightening system. So, no read, no write yung mga ninuno natin. Dumating yung mga Espanyol, kung sino lang na-convert, naturuan mag-read and write. Dumating yung mga Amerikano, lalong nag-improve yung read and write ability nila. No? So, magtitulado na tayo. Lagyan ng titulo yung mga lupa ninyo. Problema, yung mga taga Mindanao na matagal nang lumalaban sa panahon ng Espanyol, ngayon naman sa Amerikano, no read, no write pa rin. No? So, paano ba yan? Stamp mark. Eh, wala pa naman ink ata na kagaya nung meron ngayon. No? Na dinidiin mo lang, tapos gaganon mo. Ewan ko lang kung kasama na yun sa batas nila, policy nila noon. Anyway, nabuo yung Moro Province, hinati-hati. And then what was curious about it, if you look at the map, was lahat yung nakapula, karamihan dyan, yan yung mga unconverted. Both Moro and Lumad. Unconverted yan. So they were all Moro and Lumad tribes in the red area of Mindanao that you can see on the slide. Lahat yan unconverted. So ginawa silang Moro. Lahat yung nandun sa ano ba yan? Violet? Purple? Anyway, no? Yang nandun dyan na area, yun yung mga converted areas. No? Moro and Lumad. Primarily Lumad yan. At marami ng mga settlers dyan. So yan, directly under the control of America. No? Kasama na siya sa mga regular na mga districts and provinces kagaya ng sa Visayas at Luzon during the American period. Pero yung Moro Province, no, nilampsam lahat ng mga Muslim, Islamized tribes at saka yung unconverted na Lumad tribes into one province. Okay. Tapos, ito pa ang hatian ng lupa. So may salt to injury, ewan ko kung ano nang tawag nito. So, you add, may injury na, you add salt to injury, siguro ito, supa. No? For homesteaders, meaning yung mga nanggaling sa Luzon at Visayas, using the Torrens tightening system, gusto na mag-settle sa Mindanao, go forth young man. Sabi nga ni President Rojas, sabi, no, lahat ng mga taga Luzon and Visayas, bibigyan natin ng 16 hectares 1913. In-increase to 24 hectares 1919. Tapos binaba na naman sa 1936 na 16 hectares ulit. I'll have you know that I'm married to one of the pioneers. My wife is a descendant of a pioneer settler from Iloilo. And based on the information that I've gotten from them, they were able to, during the 1990, nakuha nilang 24 hectares na privilege. 24 hectares. No? Now, look at kung ano yung meron dun sa mga no-read na taga Mindanao. No? Noong 1919, 10 hectares. Tapos noong 1936, 4 hectares. Prior to that, wala talaga. And the ancestral domain ang pinag-uusapan natin dyan, ha? Ancestral domain. Kanunuan, kanila na yon, tapos sila pa ngayon yung walang karapatan na mag-take advantage sa mga lupa na yan. Ang matindi itong sa corporations. And when you say corporations, it included the, without necessarily implying anything, it included the religious orders. No? 1,024 hectares. Ang laki. No? Ang laki. Ngayon, kung mayroon kang 1,024 hectares agricultural land, ibebenta mo yan, antimano, bilyonaryo pa. No? So imagine mo na lang, no? How many corporations were there at that time, no? How large was the area that was given to them, and how much area was lost to the indigenous of Mindanao, both Moro and Lumad. And then, nag-introduce pa. So, Torrens tightening system, redistribution of land, no? Tapos, meron pang public school system. Okay na sana kasi English na. My grandfather is a beneficiary of the public school system of the American period. He was taken from his family at the age of 12. He returned. Nakapaa siya nung nawala siya. Pagbalik niya, the name of my grandfather is Manumbok Romuros, and he returned as Rupert Romuros. And when he left, he had no shoes. When he arrived, he had a black, shiny leather shoes. No? And the purpose, according to General Arthur MacArthur, of establishing and spreading the public school system was, quote unquote, the elaborate school network was designed primarily and exclusively as an adjunct to military operations calculated to pacify the people. So medyo masakit pakinggan yung word na pacify kasi ang pumapasok sa isipan ko, yung pacifier na sinasaksak natin sa bibig ng baby, pag siya ay maingay at umiiyak at gutom, pero wala pa tayong nabibiling gatas or hindi pa natitimpla. No? So you're pacified, but gutom ka pa rin. Diba? Tahimik ka, pero gutom ka pa rin. So the what is the innuendo, the inference is not good. Okay, what is the lumad situation during the American period, colonial period? Well, during this period, the lumad tribes also lost control over the land because of the Torres Strait system. Kung at medyo advanced yung governance and systems and education, somehow may semblance of Sharia, what is madrasa na yung Islamized tribes dito sa Mindanao, mas lalo na yung sa lumad na no read na no write pa, no? So talagang na-take advantage talaga, no, naabuso sila in the sense na pati yung customary property rights nila ay naapakan, no? And so they joined the fight. Hindi lang yung laban ng mga Moro sa Amerikano, pero pati na rin yung mga laban ng mga Pilipino sa Amerikano, no? And among those that were recorded was yung sa Northern Mindanao, yung 1906, yung Northern Mindanao and then Southern Mindanao, no? Si Governor Bolton of Davao, pinatay ng mga Bagobo noong 1906. Tapos may yung itong religious movement, yung Tungod movement, no? Na nag-start sa Davao, kumalat sa Agusan and then Bukidnon. And then sa Zamboanga Peninsula, mayroong noong 1926 to 1927 yung Subanon uprising nangyari doon. These are the only recorded known uprisings actually. Siguro meron pang iba, pero ito lang yung kinayanan ng research, no, na available. Okay, now during the what were the known from the Moro side, what were the known battles that were really na tumatak sa isipan namin against the America? Una yung Battle of Bayang, 1902, which is on, kung ikaw nakaharap ka sa monitor, yung nasa left side mo, yan yung picture ng Battle of Bayang, na yung walls of Bayang yan, na made of stone, na nasira, tapos nag photo op yung American soldier sa harap ng nasira na wall ng Bayang. Dito naman sa right side na picture na medyo mas malaki, ito yung dala-dala ni Tatay Digong nung binara niya yung US government ng first year of office niya. No, ito yung picture ng Battle of Budaho. Ang daming namatay diyan. Tapos nagphoto op pa sila pagkatapos nilang pinagpapatay. May babae pa diyan. No, Budaho is a mountain in Sulu. No, and these were some of the battles that were indicative of how the Moro resisted to the American rule. Now, despite that, so nakapagtaka, grabe sanay na ang Moro at Luman makipaglaban sa mga colonizers, no? Bakit naman nangyari nung June 9, 1921, February 1, 1924 at March 18, 1935? Tatlong beses nagpadala ng nag-ipon yung mga Muslim o Moro leaders. Meron na dito sa Zamboanga Declaration at Tansalan Declaration ata, meron din mga lumad leaders. Nag-ipon-ipon at nagpirma ng declaration. Ano ang common gist ng declaration na yon? Number one, kung ibibigay daw ng Amerika yung kasanitlan sa Pilipinas, wag daw idamay yung Mindanao. Yun ang una. Dahil daw, hindi daw marunong yung mga quote-unquote Christian Filipinos kung paano ipamahala yung mga Muslim at Lumad. Tapos, kung pwede, manatili na lang silang colony ng US. So this is the common gist of all three declarations. So there was the petition of the people of Sulu. No? They would rather be still part of the US. There was the Zamboanga Declaration, preferring to remain as a colony of the US rather than to be included in the granting of the independence of the Filipinos. Remember that we got our actual independence in 1946. So imagine that's 22 years prior to ganun na kalayo, no? Meron ng ganun na sentimento. Ganun pa kaaga. 1935 din, dahil daw if that happens, if the government does that, American government does that, there will be trouble between us, quote unquote, and the Christian Filipinos. Tapos meron ditong merong picture dito na Western Union. Dati-dati hindi pa siya padala ng pera, padala pa ng telegrama ng Western Union. Ito ay galing kay Dato Piang, isang Moro leader ng Maguindanao, at pinadala niya kay Representative Robert Bacon ng Congress of the United States noong 1926 pagkatapos ng Zamboanga Declaration. Anong nakalagay? First paragraph, to allow me to congratulate you on a bill for the separation of Mindanao from the government in Manila. Long have we hoped and long have we prayed that the people of the United States, after conquering us, would not turn us over to those who do not understand us. So stress on those, turn us over to those who do not understand us. I think for the most part, and until today, it's safe to say that we do not understand still each other. There's still a lot of people who think that we do not deserve the autonomy, particularly the Moro side. No? We do not deserve the autonomy. Why should there be autonomy? We should only be one unified country, nation building, blah, 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 etc. Pero that's also outrightly ignoring the 400 years narrative that I have just shared to you. And that's one of the main issues that hindi tayo magkaroon ng closure kahit na nandiyan na yung mga peace efforts kasi dahil doon. No acknowledgement of the past. Pero ang linaw-linaw, ang daming nag-history lessons tayo, nagtuturo tayo ng history, hindi na i-stress itong mga points na to. So how would we position ourselves in terms of how we look at it moving forward, how we inherit these narratives to the next generation? Kasi mga anak na natin yung mga pamangkin natin yung mga tinuturo na natin eh. How would they understand and appreciate the dynamics of the past moving forward? Paulit-ulit na yan ng peace process, ang tagal eh. Ang bata-bata ko pa, naririnig ko na yung peace process na yan. Ngayon na halos magsi-50 na ako, ngayon lang nagkaroon ng pirmahan. No, ngayon lang nagkaroon. Hindi pa nga natin alam kung I hope na yan na. Pero baka kagaya ng sa nangyari sa final peace agreement na nagkaroon ng enhanced BARM, tapos SPCPD, tapos sabi niya ng researchers, naging failure daw, BARM na naman. I hope that's the last na. No? But the point is, I think it's the understanding that was lacking between and amongst us. And I think that's the main, the core point of the entire exercise. Another one, no? So meron ng injury, may salt to injury, may vinegar to injury, hindi ko na alam kung ano to. No, nung binuo yung constitution binuo yung Constitutional Convention to draft the Constitution na 1935 Commonwealth Constitution, not a single Moro or Lumad was represented in this meeting. I do not know if the 1973 Constitution and 1987 Constitution also had, I think Moro meron, Lumad I'm not so sure. No, sa 1987. 1973, meron din palang Moro. Pero Lumad, I'm not so sure. Pero here in the 1934, walang Moro, walang Lumad. And meron lang taga Manila na delegate na mag-represent sa Davao province. So, that means to say, sinama sa Constitution, the point here is sinama sa 1935 Constitution, yung Mindanao and the people living there, pero walang nagre-represent sa kanila dun sa pagbuo ng Constitution. Sinama na nga sila sa Treaty of Paris, sinama na naman sila sa ganon. Walang pahintulot, hindi naman talaga sila kasama. Now, ironic, kagaya nung kanina, lumalaban sa Amerikano, pero nung ang usapan magka-independensya na, ayaw magpahiwalay sa Amerikano. Gusto magpahiwalay sa Filipino Christians. Dito naman, nung time ng Japanese occupation, nagkampi-kampihan din yung tatlo. The Moro, the settler, the Lumad, nagkampi-kampihan. Everybody, they enlisted or were given field commission in the USAFE to join America against Japan, World War II. No, dito nabuo yung mga the Moro Bolo Battalion na may palatandaan ng Bolo, no, yung grupo nila Dato Gimbay Piang at saka General Salipada Kipindato na naging Speaker of the House. Tapos nagtutulungan ito sila pagka yung mga pamilya ng mga Moro Lumad at Filipino families. Pag may hinahunting ng Hapon na isang fighter, tinatago, halimbawa Pilipino siya, tinatago ng Moro at Tumad, yung Moro na fighter, tinatago ng Lumad at Filipino, vice versa. All during the World War II against the Japanese. No, nagkakampi for a short period of time. They had one enemy, they became allies. And then back to basics na naman. So post-colonial period, no, the Philippines gained independence. No, now the main reason bakit, as far as the historians understand it, is bago lang World War II, ubos na yung pondo. Prior to World War II, may recession pa na-experience ang US. So, ibig sabihin, said na yung pondo ng US. Wala na talaga silang kakayanan na i-maintain lahat ng colonies nila. So, we were so far away and they already had Japan. And Japan was more strategically located. So was Taiwan. So, well, pwede na tayo, disposable. So, we were given, no, mind you, while all other countries, and no, I just want to stress this, no, I'm not implying anything negative, but let us be reminded that while other countries, won their independence de facto through actual victory, no, over the colonizers, our independence was handed to us because the colonizers did not anymore have resources to maintain us as a colony. That's how we gained our independence in 1946. No? Just something for us to contemplate on and be sober about also. Para mas lang hindi masyado matayo yung ating, yes, we need to be proud, no? Yes, we need to be patriotic, but let's not, let's put it real, make it real talk lang, kumbaga. Here also was the time when nung na-inherit na ng Filipino yung Christian Filipinos yung bansa, yung the left group, no, called this now neo-colonialism. Makabagong pamamaraan ng pag-colonize. Kasi ang mga Filipino Christians, ang na-colonize na nila, yung Moro at Lumad ng Mindanao, no? By inheritance. Ganon. So yan na, ito na nangyari. National Land Settlement Act, tapos parami yung nagsesettle dito. So, na-depopulate. During the time of Najib Salibi, the total population of the Moro and Lumad, I think was 97 as compared to the settlers, which was about 3% lang. Now, depende sa kung hindi pa na-check sa statistics, pero according dun sa latest na statistics ng book ni Professor Ompong Rodil, 70% yung settler, 20% yung Moro, 10% yung Lumad. So, na-depopulate na yung original inhabitants ng Mindanao na minoritized pa. No, hindi sila na de facto minority, na minoritized sila. So, may prosesong nadaanan para maging minority sila. Before, they were majority in Mindanao. And then the assimilation, intensified through the national integration. My mother is a scholar of the CNI, anong tawag dyan? College National Integration ba yan? Na program. CNI. My mother was a beneficiary of that. No? Through that process, ma-assume mo na yung values, ganon, yung norms ng mainstream, ganon. So, kakalimutan mo na kung ano yung unique practices and way of life ng iyong na ethno-linguistic na group na pinanggalingan mo. Tapos siyempre dahil sa lupa nandiyan pa rin, and then continuous pa rin yung pagde-demonize, no? Hindi nga hanggang ngayon hindi pa nawawala yung demonization ng mga minority. The Moro are still traidor, mamamatay tao. The Lumad are still dugyot, uneducated, dirty, no? Do not wear slippers and what have you. It's still the same stereotypical narratives that we've heard long ago, still existing now. Particularly in the what you call this, the regular household, no, the ordinary neighborhood. So tapos meron pa ang mga strategy of the majority trying to prevent people or groups of the same group from coalescing, no, as a lesson of the past. Paghati-hatian, the Cotabato Empire of the past, which was composed of one single province, is now made up of 5 provinces. North Cotabato, Maguindanao, South Cotabato, Sarangani, and Sultan Kudarat. All of these comprised the Cotabato Empire before. para may kanya-kanya na silang leader, sila na yung magbabangay-bangayan. So, divide and rule, ika nga. No? Well, that's according to some analysts. Okay. Now, so lumalala. No? The tensions heightened, massacres occurred. The Moro-Filipino War happened. It started most probably during the Camlon Rebellion, pero hindi widespread yung naramdaman natin sa Camlon Rebellion kasi doon lang siya sa sulok. Now, according to some sources, 1952 siya natigil, yung Camlon Rebellion. Pero it definitely started 1948. Now, some sources said it lasted for more than a decade kasi on and off siya. No, on and off. Nawawala, surrender, no? Laban na naman, surrender na naman, no? And then Jabina Massacre happened in 1969. And then so which triggered the founding of the MNLF, no? Because of the Jabina Massacre. No, I know there are some social media information out there, but believe me, the Jabina Massacre, the way it was presented, Jibin Ariola, the sole survivor, is a legit person. I've met him. A lot of my mentors interviewed him. The story about him hiding somewhere in Bataan, and then him, Ninoy Aquino getting wind of what had happened, Ninoy Aquino meeting him, it's all true. No, that's all true. No, and I can vouch for that also based on the researches I've made. But aside from that, no, it has triggered the founding of the MNLF. But there are also, if you question the Jabina Massacre, then what is the Wao Massacre? So you have to research that. The Pata Island Massacre of 1982, the Manili Massacre of 1971, the Tacob Massacre of 1971, dumadaan lang, papunta doon sa Osamis ata. Oo, inubos. Malispong Massacre. Ito ang pinakamatindi. The picture to your right is the Takbil Mosque in Malispong, Palimbang, Sultan Kudarat. Na so many, depende sa kung sinong tatanungin mo, pero ang daming namatay dyan. Men, women, children, senior citizens. There is even an urban legend there na mayroong isang handprint, no, na ang print is made of blood. Daming dugo, dumikit yung palm print niya sa pader. Tapos sometime after nung nalinis na, after the massacre, wala nang katawan na natira, nililinis ng mga tao yung handprint na yon, pero pagbalik nila, nandiyan naman yung handprint, hindi ito nawawala. So, but anyway, the Malisbong Massacre, the narrative about that, around that, can be easily found on YouTube. No, it was documented, and it can be found on YouTube. If you want to see, I do not know if there are video documentations of the Manili Massacre, the Wao Massacre, the Pata Island Massacre. Pata Island Massacre, as in libo ata yan, ubos. The urban legend about the Pata Island Massacre naman is mayroong namamangka crossing islands, no, in the Sulu Archipelago. Nakita nila yung pusa, which unlikely na lumalango yung isang pusa sa dagat, pero nakita sila ng pusa papalayo sa isla ng Pata, no, naabutan ng mga namamangka. So how can you find a pusa swimming away from an island? Sea pa talaga, hindi lake na freshwater. So that's one of the urban legends. Anyway, and then we know naman the story about the MNLF, the founding, then the breakaway with the MNLF because of the 1976 Tripoli Agreement, which the MILF did not agree with, saying daming kulang, etc. Then we know about si Erap Estrada. He launched the all-out war in 2000, no, and dami na displays. 2003 naman kay President Macapagal Arroyo, the Agbolyo conflict, but we call it here as the all-out peace kasi all-out peace daw siya as opposed to the all-out war ni President Estrada. And then yung 2008 MOA-ID conflict nung binasura ng Supreme Court yung MOA-ID. Pagpirma na sana sila sa ang OPAP at saka ang MILF doon sa Malaysia, pipirmahan na, naglabasan na ng ballpen, nalaman na TRO. Tapos yun, nagalit na, pumutok na gulo. No, nag-trade na si Commander Cato, Commander Bravo, Commander Pangalian, and so on and so forth. No? All through the time from the post-colonial period up to the present, the counter-insurgency campaign of the AFP against the Moro was very strong, was sustained. Now, by doing so, No? Ang daming mga collateral talaga, ang daming mga napakwit. Buti na lang dumating nung after the MOA 80 event kasi dumating yung lumakas yung 2002, 2000 lumakas yung civil society community, so mas nado-document pero hindi systematized. Naging systematized na lang nung pumasok yung UN agencies nung after the MOA 80. Tapos marami na the systematization of data collection of displacement became stronger. And ngayon, alam na natin kung ilan talaga eksakto ang nababakwit kada may kaguluhan. Pero most probably before, itong 2000 onward, talagang malaki yan. No? Unfortunately, hindi lang na-document. Okay. Now, so add to that, no, post-colonial period, yung merong mga, I would like to cite na there were some generals over the long period of time na talagang pro-peace. No, most probably dahil sa nakatraining din sila sa isang peace institute or what have you, mayroon silang personal experience or their values really are unique, no? But there are some, and some of them I can point out, no, General Raimundo Feder, General Rodolfo Garcia, some of those that I had met in the Mindanao Peace Building Institute, I think General Ijawan, who is now with DNR, part of General Simato's staff. I think General Cedilio also was formerly with Task Force Cotabato. No, these people, these soldiers, these commanders and generals, I know for a fact that they are pro peace. But there are also those who are hawkish, pro-war, because that's one way of getting themselves promoted. A lot of the soldiers who get assigned here in Mindanao, it's probably dahil sa bunot-bunutan. Kung hindi, this is frontline kasi, which is very ironic because kaya nga, if you claim that Mindanao is part really of the Philippines, why do you put your front lines here, your Marines here? No? Why are they putting pala past tense? No? Dahil dito yung bakbakan eh. Pagka nagpakbakan ka, ang dami mo makukuha ang medal. No? So, ang dami, bilis mo ma-promote, Chief of Staff, Secretary of Defense, blah, blah, blah. No? So, that has been a pattern also prior to from the early 80s up to the 90s. I think that's the common route. No? And then, what complicated the situation was the rise of violent extremism. So, 1990s, nandyan na yung Abu Sayyaf sa island provinces. No? Sila Janjalani. Tapos, nung pagkatapos ng MOA AD, nagtampo ito si Commander Cato kasi sinanction ng MILF, nag-breakaway siya, nag-BIFF siya. Kinalaban ng gobyerno, sarili. Pero hindi pa masyado terrorista ang classification. Nung namatay si Cato, nagkabitakan, nagkaroon ng tatlong factions, yung kay Abu Turaipe, yung number one, pinakauna nag-swear ng allegiance sa ISIS, which I think during the time of the Marawi siege as well. So, nagkaroon na rin yun na yung grupo na lumaban, no? Na nagpalalim at nagpalawak ng tinatawag natin na violent extremism and terrorism dito sa Mindanao. Tapos yung AKP, Dawla Islamia Lanao. Now, if you will notice, wala akong nilalagay na Maute group because it's unpeaceful to use the term Maute group. Maute kasi is a family name. The official name of the group is Dawla Islamia Lanao. Now imagine if your family name is De La Cruz and then one of your relatives created a group, a terrorist group, and then it will be called a De La Cruz terrorist group. You being a De La Cruz but do not agree to what he did, damay ka kasi lahat ng De La Cruz, i-checkpoint. Payag ka ba? Masaya ka ba? No, of course not. Hindi ka damay eh. Pero nadamay ka kasi you share the same. And it's unfair on the part of the Maute who are not related. So De La Cruz is a very common family name. But there are at least two Maute clans in Lanao that are not related to each other. The one Maute na yung kasama sila Omar is taga-Butig. The other Maute clan is in Marugong if I'm not mistaken. No? Hindi nila kaano-ano pero siyempre may checkpoint. Pakita ka ng ID, Maute apelido mo. Wala na. Kawawa ka. Kikilatisin ka. If you do not have any proof to show that you are not related, how can you prove that you are not related to a person with the same family name? Hirap kaya nun. Diba? Pero that's the situation there. So that's the reason why I do not use the word Maute. It's unpeaceful, and me being a peace builder, I would urge you all also not to use the term. I would prefer you use the Dawla Islami, and then you put a close parenthesis if it is really necessary. Maute group. Pero the formal name is Dawla Islami. Okay, and then other than that, at the bedrock of it all, meron kaming Rido. All of the tribes may Rido. Maybe it's a carryover from the time prior to the arrival of the colonizers, but definitely clan feud is un-Islamic. It's also un-Christian. No? Pero it is existing. It's permeating the grassroots of Mindanao. It has how many interventions have been done, pero hindi talaga siya masolve. So maybe because a state of confusion in terms of norms and values is prevailing here in Mindanao, that it contributes to the perpetuation of clan feud. No? And then ito, Torrens tithing, ancestral claim, overlapping claims, competing claims, land conflict ang labas. No? Connected either to Rido or connected to politics. So lalong gumulo. No? Meron ng bigger conflicts na nangyayari in the contemporary times after the colonial period. Meron pang mga bedrock na nangyayari. So party time ng Mindanao, no, until today. So in terms of the Lumad naman, ang context naman ng kanilang experience in relation to conflict, yung development aggression na tinatawag. No? Panahon pa ng Amerikano kasi dahil nga sa Torres Strait system, pinipilit na sila through the development initiatives, pinipilit na silang patalsikin sa kanilang ancestral domain. So marami tayong mga nakikita na ancestral domain minsan na affected. Yung dyan sa Pulumulok at saka Tiboli, yung Dole Philippines, ang lawak-lawak dyan, a good portion of that is ancestral domain of the Blaan. No? Sa Bukidnon naman, yung mga Higaunon at Talaandig nag-overlap sa mga plantation ng Del Monte, Philippines. So yung picture na nandiyan dyan sa right side ninyo, 25 hectares yan na Del Monte plantation. Definitely, there is a big chance now, a good portion of that, the peripheral portions of that, overlap with ancestral domain claims of the Talaandig in the Higaunon. And then in the Bukidnon Davao area, may 1,000 to 3,000 hectares na ginamit ng foreign agribusiness entities. No, tapos meron pa mining. Alam naman natin mas kilala yung mining. No, na issue. So ang dami na a good number of local and foreign mining corporations no have gotten permits, and these permits covered ancestral domains of the Lumad, Karagayan, Davao, in relation to the dynamics now. Not so much yung pero definitely dito sa Sagittarius mining sa Sarangani, most probably meron ding nadamay at tamaan sa Sarangani and South Cotabato, yung Tiboli and Blaan tribes. So tapos in relation to the Bangsamoro peace process, I think you've heard also, nagre-request din, nag-aalala din yung mga Lumad tribes. Baka pwedeng meron din kami equal footing sa peace talks ninyo with government. Kasi kami, minority din kami, etc. etc. No, unfortunately, hindi nangyari 'yon kasi kumbaga, although they are an aggrieved party, it was not cause enough to be recognized. I don't know, I'm just guessing, but it most probably was the basis is di naman sila yung main aggrieved party na ka-engage ng Philippines following the 6 paths to peace and 3 comprehensive principles of the peace process ng OPAP, kasi hindi naman sila take up arms, no? So there was no probable cause or basis for the government following the framework, the peace process framework, to engage with the Lumad tribes, although they are an aggrieved party, because they did not take up arms. Also, if you go outside the Philippine context and look at other peace talks, wala naman talagang peace talks na nangyari na merong dalawang party tapos may sisingit na third party in the middle, lateral entry ika nga, tapos magkikipag-peace talks. So, wala pa akong alam na nangyaring ganon. So, the Lumad tribes tried to join the Bangsamoro peace process, but they were unsuccessful. But they were represented. May mga representatives sila pinadala, but not yung equal footing na may representatives ang MILF representing the Bangsamoro, the government representing the Filipino people, and then Lumad representing the Lumad communities. Walang ganon. Okay, so tapos puro gulo yung nabanggit ko. Puro gulo. Pero in the contemporary times, we have to appreciate and recognize the fact na ang dami yung mga peace gains na nakamit din. Kahit pa paano, no? And one of that is yung pagbuo ng OPAP, no? It started with the Tripoli Agreement 1976 between the government and the MNLF ito, sorry. MNLF yan, and the MNLF. 1990 Tripoli Agreement. It eventually led to the 1996 final peace agreement signing in during the time of Fidel V. Ramos. And then it also helped in the push to strengthen Republic Act 6734, yung Organic Act na pinasa creating the arm nung panahon ni Cory, na strengthen siya through Republic Act 1954 nung time ni FDR. No? So that's another gain. No, tapos yun nga sinabi ko yung OPAP. It started with the National Unification Commission 1992 led by Commissioner Heidi Yorak. At that time COMELEC commissioner siya, no? Nag-consultation siya, nabuo doon sa consultation yung 3 comprehensive principles of the peace process at saka yung tinatawag na 6 paths to peace na naging basis kung bakit nag-open up sila na negotiation with the armed groups, no? MNLF, and then CPP, NPA, NDF, nabuo yung JASIG, and then later on, MILF din, no? Nung nagkapirmahan na yung decision sa MNLF. No? And then, yung GRP MILF Agreement for Cessation of Hostilities. Dahil nung agreement ng Cessation of Hostilities, nabuo yung International Monitoring Team na international peacekeepers ang pumunta para i-monitor yung cessation of hostilities habang nag-peace talks. Yung Coordinating Committee on the Cessation of Hostilities na local naman. Kung international lang IMT, yung CCH ay local. Tapos yung AJAG, ito yung pag may ginawang criminal acts either from either side, yung ad hoc joint action group na joint PIAF and AFP, hahabulin ngayon ng gumawa ng criminal acts para panagutan. Kasi the criminal acts basically fall under the category na they threaten the peace process. If it threatens the peace process, ang hahabol sa'yo si AJAG. No? And then, ano pa? So, meron ding Tripoli Agreement na naman noong 2001, this time with the MILF. Tapos, exploratory talks naman 2003 to 2007. I would like also to stress na nung time ni FDR, there was this prior to the peace talk starting between the government and the MILF. Nag-reach out si former Executive Secretary Ruben Torres kay the late Vice Chairman for Political Affairs Ghazali Jafar. Now, sabi niya, can we start talking peace talks, no? Engaging in a peace talk. Ang delimitation lang, ang parameter lang ng ating peace talk is we will not kumbaga kung magne-negotiate ka, ikaw alas, ako dos. I start from dos, ikaw will start from alas. No? So everything in between, pero hindi kasama ang dos at hindi kasama si alas mo. So everything from king to 3, yan ang ini-negotiate natin. No? Pagalingan na lang tayo kung saan malalagay sa gitna yung negotiation. So, in the part of the MLF, as long as hindi sila mag-negotiate for independence, okay yun. Tapos yung sa government, outright surrender of the MLF, hindi rin nila negotiate yun, then go ang peace talks. So that created what we call the gentleman's agreement, no? Which triggered the peace talks with the MILF. Okay, now there are also other peace gains, no? Greater CSO presence in the peace process, mainly through the Mindanao Peaceweavers. Then later on, nung nagkaroon ng mga kaguluhan, lumabas yung MINRAC, Mindanao Human Rights Action Center, although it was really at the height of a lot of these sporadic armed encounters. No, they were very effective in monitoring and reporting human rights violations. No? And then as part of the peace initiatives, nagbuo ng mga zones of peace. So what you know now is the teacher kayo, alam nyo yung administrative order, DepEd Administrative Order 32, kung hindi ako nagkakamali, declaring schools as zones of peace. Pero bago pa nangyari yung administrative order na yan, communities were declared as zones of peace. No, right after ng all-out war na ni ERAP, naglabasan itong mga zones of peace wherein people in the community are capacitated to fend for themselves, have the ability to say no, stop those who are fighting, tell them na kung gusto nyo magpatayan, magkaubusan, doon kayo sa liblib na lugar, wag nyo namang idama yung aming mga kambing, manok at kabahayan kasi kawawa, pagka nasira nyo ito, wala na kami mabubuhay, buti kung mabibigyan nyo kami ng pera o kabuhayan. So, in essence, yun ang concept ng zone of peace. Prior to that, meron naman peace and development communities, part of the program of the multi-donor program of the UN as part of the package of the peace agreement between the government and the MNLF. And then marami na, sanctuaries of peace. These are versions of the zones of peace. Then later on, yung schools of peace. This was prior to the Administrative Order 32. And then, merong MOA-ID, we consider that as again, matindi yung puyatan ng dalawang peace panels, yung nga lang naudsyame, the creation of the civilian protection component of the IMT. Malaking bagay din yun kasi sa baba, nakita nyo naman kung gaano ka-overlapping at multi-layered yung conflict context ng Mindanao. So kailangan may civilian protection component kasi it helps move the peace process along. It also at the same time allows those who are negotiating for peace, the bigger parties, to prepare for how to address the horizontal conflict below. No? At yung mga mid-level na conflicts and violence. Tapos 2012, Framework Agreement, sign na ng 2014, Comprehensive Agreement of the Bangsamoro, drafting and passing of the Bangsamoro Organic Law, tapos plebiscite, nasama yung ilang barangay sa North Cotabato, hindi nakasama yung 6 na munisipyo sa Lanao del Norte, tapos yung Bangsamoro Transition Authority. And now that leads us to where we are now. Si Farm, they're trying to work for an extension. You may ask, bakit may extension? It's because these people have never had experience doing creating 7 priority laws before, either the government or the MILF. They had never experienced drafting and passing, deliberating on 7 priority laws before, ever. So nung nag-usap yung mga bossing ng dalawang party, o gaano katagal ito kaya yung transition, nag-estimate ng 3 years siguro, kaya na siguro. Well, little did they know na hindi kasya ang 3 years sa 7 batas na priority. Administrative Code, Electoral Code, Civil Service, kung ano-ano pa. Marami pang iba na code. Ngayon, sasabihin na, pwede naman gawin later on. Ang problema yung election code. Hindi kasama. And the problem is, based on the agreement and the BOL, parliamentary yan. Kung gagamitin ko, may principle kasi, kung wala pang batas, the batas of the previous structures, yung ARM ang gagamitin. Hindi naman kasi parliamentary yung batas ng ARM. So yun ang problema. No? Hindi siya match. Yung electoral code na ginamit ng ARM, hindi match para dito sa BARM ngayon. So they need to have that electoral code passed para meron silang paggagamitan as reference dito sa actual election, whether it be ngayon sa 2002 or maging successful sila sa extension advocacy nila at lobby nila 2025. Ganon. Okay, so just to wrap up things, key points. This is the basis why we are doing this now. Our ancestors were the first to occupy the island. The Lumad and Moro ancestors, as well as the ancestors of the Tagalog, the Ilocano, the Bicolano, the Hiligaynon, etc. Long before there was even the entity called the Philippines, our ancestors, because we all belong to a tribe, first occupied the archipelago. That's yung first point dyan. Wala pang Pilipinas. Meron na tayo. Andito na tayo. Mga tribo na tayo. Oo. Walang foreigner dito. Tagalog, although tawag nila sa atin sa probinsyano, probinsya rin naman sila. Capital lang sila. Okay, so second point, protracted armed conflict started when Spaniards attacked the Islamized communities and then the IB communities in Mindanao. 1565 onwards, nauna silang umatake kasi nga colonizing guns, gold, glory. Gold, God, glory pala, sorry. So nauna sila, rumesback lang. Yun nga lang umabot ng 400 years. Tapos ang dami pa sila. Okay, next point naman. The conflict continues because there is a refusal, and this is one I have mentioned this earlier. There is a refusal to acknowledge the historical injustices. Ito, nabanggit na rin ito ni Tatay Digong. Done against the Moro and people and the indigenous people by the mainstream majority and its government. Historical yung making of the flag, declaring independence, time of Aguinaldo, so on and so forth. No? Commonwealth, the convention, no? Ang daming precedents na nagsasabi talaga na hindi kinikilala yung 300 years prior na struggle, no? Bago pa natatag yung Katipunan, at bago naging sikat si Bonifacio, ang dami nang nangamatay ng mga Moro at Lumad na lumaban sa mga Espanya. So, where is the recognition there? Kumbaga. Fourth point, no? The present reality is that nandiyan yung prejudices. Hindi natin ma-deny yan. Nandiyan yung biases, hatred. Nandiyan yan. Kasi 300 years tayong pinag-away. Dati-dati, bago dumating yung Espanyol, nag-trade tayo, magkaibigan tayo, nag-intermarry malamang tayo. Pero dahil sa Espanyol, no, nakalimutan nyo na nga yung inyong mga indigenous na apelido, no, pinag-away-away pa tayo. No? And that's 300 years long. So, hindi basta-basta mawawala yan. Now, yung narrative na yan, yung right to self-determination, gusto namin ng autonomy, kasi kakaiba kayo does not recognize the unique way of life, our religions, not, kumbaga, ultimo yung kung saan, kumbaga, in a mixed community kasi makikita mo yung dynamics and tension eh. Yung kasi we have a minaret, we have a call to prayer. Wala kaming kampana ng mga Muslim, no? Pero siyempre, saan haharap yung megaphone dun sa taas? Yung trompa ba yung tawag dyan? So may direksyon. Minsan hindi sinasadya, nakaharap dun sa community na karamihan ay hindi Muslim. So naiinis sila dahil may alas 5, sarap-sarap ng tulog, lamig-lamig. So naging source ng girian, no? So yun, kung ganun lang din, no? So, why not create an entity that would allow them to freely exercise their way they want to exercise their lives, no? And that's through the farm, no? So that's one, no? Dahil doon, frustration dahil doon sa narrative. So ang lumalabas doon, it also led to the creation or the rise of groups who are engaging in terroristic activities and violent extremism. No? So the next step forward talaga for us to really finally address this is to promote mutual understanding. And this is, one way is through this webinar. No? Benamano pa nga ito, pilot pa ito. We need to promote understanding. Kasi ako, lumaki ako ng Cagayan de Oro. Ilang taon din, pinanganak ako sa Metro Manila, Mandaluyong City. Sa labas po, hindi sa loob. Tapos, how many years din ako nag-aral Catholic school. So I definitely know the narrative of the mainstream majority. I definitely know that because it has become mine. Even a lot of my values and my norms are from the mainstream majority. No? But ang unfortunate dyan, the mainstream majority does not know about the uniqueness of the minorities, the two minorities in Mindanao. So that's the sad story about it. No? So what are the challenges? Well, una, magkapatid si peace at si justice. Pag sinabi mong peace lang, walang justice, peke yun na peace. That's what we call negative peace. No? It's silent, pacified, quiet, but definitely emotions are roiling deep inside. And if not addressed, the relational aspect, puputok yan at puputok yan. So kahit na ilang beses mong pilitin ang kapayapaan, quote and quote, law and order, peace and order, pag hindi mo tinugunan yung kumakalam na grievances sa loob ng mga naagrabyado, puputok at puputok yan. Yung peace and order na yan, masisira at masisira yan ng paulit-ulit. No? Sayang lang yung effort at gastos at investment sa peace and order initiatives na yan kung hindi maa-address yung justice na yun. Kasi yun ang magpapahupa ng galit kasi may hustisyang naibibigay. In whatever way, shape, or form yan, no? I leave it to those who are in authority to do that, no? But definitely, there can be no genuine peace without justice. Second point, sa challenges na kinakaharap natin, efforts to understand the common roots of the conflict. Ang dami nagsasabi, pera yan, socio-economic yan, palagi na lang. No, naririnig ako, mga kumakandidatong senador, presidente. Ang problema sa Mindanao ay pera, no? Socio-economic. So where is it now? Sige, socio-economic. Try, let's be philosophical. Mamimiloso po lang ako. Let's ask the Philippine government to stop getting outputs from Mindanao and then just rely on the crops and the resources coming from Visayas and Luzon. And then kung ano lang yung mina, yung ani na galing sa Mindanao, amin lang. Kami ang nagbe-benefit. For 10 years lang, no? Kung socio-economic nga. No? So that's definitely yung sasabihin ko sa inyo, 65% overall of the outputs coming from Mindanao are benefit the entire country. But ang bumabalik sa Mindanao is less than 20% estimate. No? So socio-economic yung problem, yun nga ang distribution wala na, unfair na. How much more kung ganun ang problem. It's masyadong micro yung solution pero macro and matagal at centuries old yung driver, yung cause. No? Third point, mutual understanding can really lead to unity. No? Kaintindihan. Problema, kailangan natin iset aside yung cultural baggages natin. And then, transformation of structural violence and institutionalized oppression. Merong mga batas dyan kasi na nagko-contribute ng oppression and suppression. Sasabihin natin na we follow the law, rule of law. Paano kung long law is not, may term tayo dyan user-friendly. Maybe the user is those in government, those in the current administration lang, friendly sa kanila. Pero sa taong masa, hindi. No? So, that's structural violence. That's institutional oppression. So maybe we need to transform those. We need to revisit some of those laws that are very oppressive, not quote-unquote user-friendly. Maybe we need to make them not necessarily to the point na we are libertarian, but to the point na there is justice, balance. No? Of course, we need to remake history. Meaning what? Not remake history of the past na magre-revisionist tayo or we have an alternative reality. Kaya na nangyayari ngayon dyan sa social media. May kung ano-anong naglalabasan na kwento patungkol sa COVID. Kung ano-anong labasan na kwento patungkol kay Tatay Digong. Kung ano-anong kwento patungkol kay, naglalabasan kwento patungkol kay Lenny. Yung iba dyan, trump up. Yung iba katotohanan, hindi mo na alam. Ang punto dyan, hindi mo na alam kung alin ang totoo hindi. So, nagbabase ka na lang, ang giya mo na lang yung sarili mong values. At kung ano yung medyo umaayon ka, dahil dun sa values mo, dun ka naniniwala. So, mahirap yun. We need to remake history together as a whole. A history that is acceptable to all of us. So that can only happen if we start now, moving forward. So, starts to experience na yung history nung nakaraan. We need to create a history together, hand in hand, from now, moving forward. So that yun ang maipapamana natin sa mga anak natin. In conclusion, pag sinabing Mindanao, peace and conflict history of Mindanao, it's not only a question of poverty talaga, as I mentioned earlier. It's also it has also something to do with identity and recognizing that identity. Tabi natin yung stereotype. Try to practice, not generalize. Kasi sila ganyan na talaga sila lahat. Ganyan talaga. Try to stop that, try to control that tendency because definitely, I'm telling you, kung meron ka doon, it's mutual. Hindi lang kayo ang gumagawa doon, pati sila gumagawa sa iyo. So it's mutual. Okay, second to the last. Napakadali mag-aggravate ng conflict sa baba, pero napakahirap mag-build ng peace. Ako 20 years na ako nag-build ng peace. I can point to some accomplishments as a peace builder, but I was able to do it with a group of people who are better than me. And then it was a group effort. And, it's so much more difficult than creating. Murahin mo lang yung tao sa kapitbahay mo, may gera na. Diba? Patayin mo yung anak ni ganito ganon, may gera na. It's so easy to create conflict. It's so hard to build peace. So if we recognize that, we value peace more. No? Now, in closing, despite the prejudices and biases, the doubts and fears, cultural baggage that we have, the people of Mindanao, the tribe people of Mindanao, the Christian settlers, the Muslim Moro, the Lumat, they generally have a feeling of hope. May pag-asa pa rin naman tayo na nararamdaman at tinatanaw. That there is a better and more peaceful future out there for us. Not only for us, but siguro for our children and our children's children na kailangan lang nating maabot. No? I think you know already of the story about an old man and a child, and an old man holding and the child holding a bird. Nahuli niya yung bird. Tapos gusto niyang i-prank yung matanda. So, tinago niya yung bird sa likod niya. Tinanong niya yung lolo niya, "Lolo, no, I have a bird behind me in my hands. Guess what?" Sabi niya, "Is it alive or dead?" Sabi ng lolo niya, nung sabi ng lolo, "Well, if I'm going to say the bird is dead, you're going to open your hands and let the bird fly. But if I'm going to say that the bird is alive, you're going to crush the bird with your hands and the bird will be dead." So the future of the bird is in your hands. So same as here, no? Definitely the journey of the Philippines will critically hinge on the journey not only of Luzon and Visayas but also of Mindanao. So it's not only the Mindanaoans it's only not only on the hands of the Mindanaoans that the future of Mindanao lies, but the hands of the Filipino people. So whatever happens to the future of Mindanao and therefore the future of the Philippines is in our hands. So with that, maraming salamat sa oras ninyo. Pasensya at medyo mahaba.